What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and today I wanted to give you a peeking and holding angles guide. Before we start, I just want to let you know I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Link for that is in the description. Also, like and subscribe for more Valorant videos, and go and join my Discord server. The link for that is in the description too. The first thing you need to know about peeking and holding angles is that the further you are from the angle that you're trying to peek or hold, the more of the enemy you'll be able to see, and the closer you are, the less you'll be able to see. You can see here, this sage is really close to the corner, and I'm going to be back here pretty far away. And pretty early on, I'll be able to see a bit of her player model, and she won't be able to see any of me until I get into her sightline. Being close and being far have their advantages and disadvantages, and I'm going to go over those later on in the video. The first type of peek that I want to go over is called the Jiggle Peek. Jiggle peeking is harder to do in Valorant than in CSGO because the acceleration of movement is slower in Valorant, so being able to go back and forth quickly is not as easy as in CSGO. When jiggle peeking, the idea is to show a very small amount of your player model to the enemy, and it could be used to bait out shots or to make the enemy aim closer to the corner than they need to be. Properly jiggle peeking, you may not even see your enemy. You really won't be able to see them at all, maybe just the edge of them, if anything. Because if the enemy is further away from the angle, they'll be able to see part of you without you seeing them. This can be really effective at baiting out operator shots and also getting the enemy to aim closer to the corner, forcing them over here so you can take a wide peek later and have a better shot at them. This is what jiggle peeking looks like from the enemy's perspective. A quick note on counter strafing. Counter strafing is when you're moving in one direction and you tap the other movement key to stop your movement in that direction. This can be used to go from a walking state to a standing still state quicker than if you just let go of the button on its own. And you can also see when you're full AD strafing back and forth, you can see that there's a moment in time where you're technically standing still. This can be used really effectively when doing the next kind of peek I'm about to show you. This is also really easy to see with something like the Marshal or the Operator. When the red dot is on the crosshair, you know you're full accurate. And when I'm constantly moving left and right here, and there's always a time when I switch directions when I'm fully accurate. So the next type of peeking is called shoulder peeking. And sometimes shoulder peeking and jiggle peeking are called the same thing. But in this video, when I refer to them, I mean two different kinds of peeks. When I'm talking about shoulder peeking, I mean just peeking an angle just enough so you can see them and not exposing yourself to all the angles available around a corner. If the attackers manage to plant a bomb and you're trying to retake the site on C, this is a route that people commonly take. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different angles that the enemies could be at. So taking them all at one time is usually a bad idea, but if you use a shoulder peek, you can do each one individually, one at a time, and not expose yourself to every angle all at once. And also when you're shoulder peeking, like I just explained before, there will be a time when you're fully accurate going left and right. And you can use this to get those what looks like running headshots on enemies who are holding angles. Obviously in game, you're not going to be peeking this many times, but you get the idea.
Taken out.
You can practice peeking around corners using Sage's wall and against bots at the range. If you just put a wall up, you can use this as any kind of corner in the game and just practice. AD strafing, shoulder peeking, jiggle peeking, whatever you want. And use it for different bots. Another thing to note when you're taking angles with a shoulder peek, you can hear that I'm not really taking footsteps, and you can do this completely silently to take a whole entire bomb site like this without taking any full steps and making any noise. Slow peeking is another way to take angles, but it's worse because of how slow it is, and because you're able to peek without making any footsteps, because there's a certain range where you can go left and right without making noise, you can effectively shoulder peek quickly every angle here without making noise. If you listen closely, I'm going to take this angle, this one where she is here, and check this one too, all without making noise. I'm not the best at it, and some of those might have been closer to jiggle peeks than actual shoulder peeks, and me getting those shots off would have been very difficult, and it's why it's a really high level thing to do. But at the very least, I was able to get the information as to where the enemies were without making noise and not exposing myself for that long. And if I was good enough, I would have been able to get shots off too and maybe take out one or two enemies. The last peek I'm going to go over is called a wide peek, and the wide peek is exactly what it sounds like. It's when you're peeking really wide around an angle and exposing yourself to a bunch of angles at the same time. Sometimes people call this a swing peek, or when someone says I'm going to swing this angle, that's usually what they mean. And the swing peek, while it seems like it's pretty useless and it will get you killed more often than not, it can be combined with other types of peeks and used with teammates to be really effective. If there's ever more than one enemy around a corner, you definitely don't want to wide peek it, but if it's only one enemy you're going up against, a wide peek could be a good idea because you could go right past their crosshair and make them have to adjust their aim before they can get a shot off. If an enemy is holding a tight angle like this, it can also be effective to be using a wide peek because right here they'll be able to see me, but if I move over far enough, they won't have an angle on me and I'll still have an angle on them. This is easier to see when I show it from an enemy's perspective. If this enemy were to just shoulder peek, then you would have a clear angle on them to be able to kill them. But if they were to wide peek this angle, they can have an angle on you without you being able to see them. You would only be able to see them for a fraction of a second, and they can go right past your line of sight and still have sight on you. Another effective way of wide peeking is to first jiggle peek an angle, and so that way your enemy is looking closer towards the corner that you're trying to peek around, and then hit them with a wide peek, and they'll be aiming closer to this edge, and they'll sometimes have to flick off of it to be able to get the kill on you if you peek it wide enough. Of course, you have to be careful with this because it exposes you to a whole lot more angles, but if you know there's only one enemy there, this can be a really effective way of taking an angle. This is what it could look like from an enemy perspective. You can see the little jiggle peeks might get an enemy to aim closer to this angle right here, and then if they swung around really far, they would go right past your crosshair, and you would have to flick at this point to get over, and they could be pre-aiming you from here and have an easy shot off from this angle. One very effective way of using a wide peek is to combine it with a teammate who is shoulder peeking. This will force the enemy to look at the teammate who is wide peeking who goes first, and if done properly, the teammate who is short peeking will be able to get a shot off before the enemy can shoot the wide peeking teammate. Valorant also has peeker's advantage, and pretty much any game online does. If you're on LAN, peeker's advantage isn't a thing, but since most of you are probably going to be playing online, peeker's advantage is definitely something you want to know about. Peeker's advantage is caused by lag compensation. From an enemy's perspective, peeker's advantage can look kind of ridiculous sometimes because the enemy looks like they're full sprinting and they'll get the shot off before sometimes you can even see them. And if you know an enemy is around a certain corner, you can use this to your advantage by peeking around the corner really quickly, getting the shot off, and then peeking back behind the wall before they really get the chance to see you. When you're going to peek an angle, you're going to want to be perpendicular to the enemy and not always perpendicular to the wall. So you can see here, I'm in this straight line here along this wire, and then the enemy is here, so I'm going to be basically aiming just this way. If I want to peek her around here, this is more of a wide angle, but if I were to want to peek her here, then you still want to have your crosshair set up perpendicular with them. This will really only be used when you know where an enemy is, because usually if you're going around a corner, you're going to want to hold your crosshair on the edge when you look for the enemy, but if you know that they're there, then the more effective way of getting that shot off and more consistent way, because if you know that they're here, and you're already perpendicular with them, you won't even have to move your crosshair at all. Of course, this is only useful when you know that the enemy is there. Otherwise, you're probably going to want to hold on the edge. Or if you know that, or if you think an enemy might be in that corner, it could also be effective to pre-aim there, being perpendicular with it. But generally, you're only going to want to be squared up with an enemy when you know that they're there already around a corner. A lot of these same principles can be applied when holding angles too. Generally, when you're holding an angle, you're going to want to be as far away from it as possible because you're just going to be sitting there holding it the whole time. You're not going to be moving at all. And being able to see the enemy as they're moving up before they see you is definitely going to give you the bigger advantage than if you were to be close to the corner. So in this situation, I'm trying to hold this angle right here. Not this one, just this one over here. So the further back I am, the better chance I have, especially someone slow peeking, the better chance I have to see them before they see me and get a shot off. In this example, the enemy right here cannot see me on their screen, but you can clearly see that I see a whole lot of their body. Another note for holding angles, you're going to want to expose yourself the least that you possibly can. Let's say, for example, that there's a bomb planted at C and I'm defending it. If I want to hold this angle and this angle, knowing the enemies are coming from either from a flanking position going back through B or through the garage, or just coming from B or the garage in general, I could hold the angle here and be looking at the door and have a chance of killing somebody coming from there too. But another place you can hold this angle is somewhere like this, where you'll have the enemy's backs to you once they walk past. Of course, you'll be exposed back here, but if you have confidence that they're not going to be coming through this way, an effective place to hold would be here. Another situation where this could be a good idea is if you know somebody is flanking and they're either going to be going through the front, the garage connector to C, or coming through here to go to C, you can hold this angle here as opposed to like here or anywhere else, and the enemy's usually not going to walk to retake the position. They're not going to walk through here and check this angle. they're going to be focused over here and on site more because that's where they expect the enemies to be coming from. And if you're here, you will always have easy shots just at their back. This theory can be applied to a lot of places on other maps too. Another place where I like to use this kind of strategy is when I'm holding mid on split. Mid control is obviously one of the most important things in split. And if I'm on defense or defending a bomb and I want to hold the mid position, I don't necessarily have to be peeking the whole mid the whole time. If the bomb is planted at B, or if I know that the enemies are going towards B, I can take a super passive angle back here and wait for them to walk past this way up to B heaven and be able to get easy shots on everybody. And even if they do try and peek around this corner here in this doorway, I'm pretty far away from that corner, which we know that when holding angles is more effective than being close. And they're going to have to push through, and they don't have much room to go backwards here to be far away from this angle, so they'll have to peek it close and you'll be far away. You can imagine that in a game situation, if the enemies are moving towards B, whether there be a bomb planted there and you're holding mid control, or you know that they're moving towards B because there's a lot of enemies in the garage or something like that, if you're holding B from here, you have a lot better chance of surviving and getting kills rather than if you held up close, challenging every time an enemy pushed up. If you're holding the angle going up to mailroom from all the way back here, the enemies will most likely walk straight past your crosshair with their back towards you. Generally, when enemies are going towards B, they're not going to check this far in to ropes. They're just going to look generally to see if an enemy is around here or if they're holding an angle here. And once they see that there's no one there, they're going to move on to checking other angles, like this one over here, or they're just going to be looking up in front of them, making sure nobody's going to peek them around here. So if enemies are walking by, you usually have very easy shots at them. And you can also get a whole lot of information if there's more than one enemy walking by. And it's also a very quick flank for you if you want to try and peek this angle and kill anybody who walked by, if you see multiple enemies pass through. This can also be applied to the opposite side of mid and also to a whole lot of other angles throughout all the other maps. Another important part of holding angles is patience. Sometimes all you have to do is hold one angle, and looking at your minimap or changing what angle you're looking at can be the difference in getting a kill and someone slipping by. You can see here, the Omen is watching the showers for me, and I know that they're not going to rotate through CT spawn, so I just have to sit here and wait until I see an enemy walk by. That's it for this one, guys. Like and subscribe for more Valorant stuff, and go enjoy my Discord server. Link for that is in the description. Also, go check out my stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Eastern. Thanks again for watching.